this to start. And I think we're live. So yes, this is Troy. Welcome to another Workflow Wednesday on Now with Troy. And I'm excited. We're in the midst of the knowledge season with ServiceNow. If you're new to ServiceNow, every May, for as long as I can remember, it's been knowledge season. Knowledge is a user conference to talk all about ServiceNow. And this year it's been a little bit different. There are indeed 4 of them. So we're halfway through. And today, where's my pin button? I'm joined by Martin and Breanne from Thirdera, from Thirdera Digital. Martin, will you say hello?
Hey, Troy. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Of course, Bree.
Hey, Troy. Hey, Martin. Nice to see you again.
Thank you both for joining me. I know as we've looked at knowledge, each year they try to have a little different focus. And with everything that has been, this pandemic, with all the change across the world of work, the experience matters for employees and for customers. And experience has been the focus of knowledge. But, one of the things I wanted to spend really some time today is to hear, your stories. How did you get so focused on user experience?
Maybe I could go first.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think user experience, when I look back at like my career up till this point, I feel like user experience has always been really important in everything that I've done. So I have a degree in communications as well as graphic design, which then turned into more digital work online with websites and things like that. And I felt like I was always wanting to talk to the people using the product. So right from my early days straight out of school up until now, I was always so interested and so curious about the users. And I always joke with my team, I love hearing what people love, but it's even more fun for me to hear what people don't like and what really bothers them in those frustrations, because I really feel like we need to learn directly from our users. We need to work on listening and ask questions so that we can understand their frustrations around things and empathize with them to figure out a better solution. So I think your question was, how did I get into user experience? And I think it was just natural for me out of curiosity. And it's something that I've used in every one of my jobs up until now.
Right. I think for me, I come from the engineering side of the house, electrical engineering. And early on, I'm going to date myself with this, but voice of the customer was a big deal when we started looking at product design. And actually way back then, we pushed the envelope a little bit and say, it's not just voice of the customer, because in focus groups, you can get kind of biased. It's really environment of the customer. And it's looking at, where do products live, eat, and breathe around our users? And so, that common curiosity. Cool. Thank you, Bree. Martin, how about you? How did you get into this focus?
So for me, it was a bit different, and it was more around the technical side of user experience. I've been on the ServiceNow platform for almost 15 years now. So it's been a wild ride. And
right.
At first it was CMS, and it was one of those things that there was a lot of training around it. Very little people could do it. So it was just something I fell into, and then it was a natural transition to Portal. And through the technical side, it started having those conversations, right? Because you can see a customer go through a massive digital transformation coming into ServiceNow, but if at the end of the day the experience is not good, you're not going to get all the benefits that you're hoping for. So I think those are more of the conversations we're starting to see now. It's, I'm here now, how can I take it to the next level?
So there, right. That helps, understanding your background a little bit more. And we've talked a bunch internally as part of Thirdera with Thirdera Digital. Let's jump to knowledge. And so, Martin, you were in New York City, and Bree, you were across the pond in the Netherlands at a real live in-person event. What was the one thing that kind of shocked you as you jumped into a knowledge event in person that you weren't quite expecting this time?
I think what really shocked me was how happy everyone was to see each other. Cause I think we've been in person a little bit, but it was always with a mask on, and there was still some mask wearing for certain people. But I think that was so nice to walk into a room and just feel that warmth of everybody had that excitement inside, and just the smiles and the talking to everyone. And you could just see like old friends reconnecting, and those relationships that had always been there, but had been through a screen. And I think to get to meet lots of our colleagues, luckily for me, in EMEA that for the first time, get to meet them in person and just have those conversations live, go and have a coffee and go and watch what was going on at the conference was just so special. It was like, yeah, an energy at all. It energized us.
Yeah, that energy was the word that sticks out. So that's cool to hear. Martin, how about you?
Yeah, I think it was similar. I mean, it's been 3 years in the working, right, to try to be back in person. Much smaller setup, right? That there weren't, like, I think last knowledge there were like 30,000 people, and now it was much smaller. But I was still shocked that I was, still running into former colleagues, customers. So it was good, and everyone was just happy. It was needed, and I can tell you they're ready for more. They want to go back to the big ones. So it was very nice to see that.
Yeah, that's very cool. From a Thirdera perspective, one of the things that we've seen over the transformation of over our year and some months, right? We've grown so much. And as customers are looking at the platform, they have more than 2,000 partners to choose from. I keep saying as I reach out as one of our client executives that Thirdera does stand out. We have breadth across the platform. We have depth across the platform, as well as reach across the globe. But tell me about when you think about it, at the knowledge experience, there are some ways that Thirdera stood out. Let's talk a little bit about that. Some of it in quirky ways, some of it in practical, right?
Maybe I could start with some of the quirky ways. So what we did in Den Haag was we set up a coffee cart right outside the conference. So there was a lot of rules and we didn't break any rules. We just got very strategic about the location on the sidewalk. But we had a coffee cart serving coffee that was in black cups with the Thirdera logo on it. And right away, when people were getting off the bus, we were kind of calling them over to have a coffee with us. And it was just great to start the engagement right there and start meeting people. It didn't hurt that we were in head to toe pink suits. We were dubbed the Pink Panther ladies. So that was really fun. And then all of our guys had pink suspenders on. So I think we really stood out just from a branding perspective there. Our marketing at Thirdera is next level, next era. And I think the pink and all the dark themes that we had really set us apart on that side as well. So those are some of the quirky ways I think we really stood out.
Yeah, I think the way they put it is they wanted us to be mobile booths. So
Yeah.
just basically having the logo, it was like we were walking Thirdera's. And it paid off because I was not like in one of the areas that wasn't the show floor, and I had people from across the room walk over because they saw the shirt, and the fact that they light up, it did help to draw attention.
That's very fun. I think some of the ways that Christina and our entire marketing department has done so much tremendous work over the past year of really coming up with some, energetic, vibrant branding to stand out is great. But I think it's not only catches the attention where it's like, well, what was that? Was that an aeronaut? I need to talk to them. But let's dig into that a little bit further, whether it's some of the topics that you had, or when I've gone to knowledge, it's always the meetings after the meetings that I enjoyed most. What were some of those, either the topics that you saw the reaction from the audience, or some of those meetings after the meetings where you really enjoyed those?
Martin, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll take this one first. I mean, for me, it was a big shock to see a change. Like at previous knowledge conferences, we were the ones educating on experience, right? We were trying to educate why does it matter? Why do you need this, right? And it was a tough sell. It was never a priority. Where now I saw a total shift, right? Of ServiceNow talking experience, but also customers coming to us and not telling us, why do I need this? More, I need this.
You desperately need it, right?
And you're the people who help me. And it's not, it's not just portal, it's everything, right? They start looking at the experience end to end, and just by asking questions, you can understand that, a lot of the times, customers are following a roadmap, but they don't stop to think, what are the elements we need here? Because as design can be crucial, also content is as crucial, right? So there were a lot of discussions there as to, them trying to go back and think, why did we implement portal? What were we trying to accomplish? And and where did we fall short, and how can we prevent that? Those conversations, at least to me, were extremely rewarding. After our session, a lot of people came by as well, because they saw the session as a very simple message and very easy to relate to, right? And easy for them to go back and say, we need to start doing this, and we need to do it from the beginning. We gotta, every time we look at a process, we gotta think about experience. So to me, that was extremely rewarding.
It's cool that you see that. Oh, sorry, Bree. I was just going to say that, one of the things that sticks out is, when I came up with this name Now with Troy, the now means two things: what's happening on ServiceNow platform, which of course is knowledge, which is part of what we're talking about. But the other thing is what's happening in the business world right now. And it's cool that you're seeing that is that people are realizing that whether it's combating the great resignation or attracting great talent and retaining great talent, but it's also that brick and mortar has changed, that so often, the way that customers are interacting with the companies they do business with is completely transformed to be much more digital. So their experience matters. And I think that's been drilled in, that if we're going to survive, either from a talent or a customer experience side of the house, that digital experience matters so much.
Yeah. And I was just going to add on to what Martin was saying. I think part of our presentation, we really talked about meeting customers and clients where they're at in their journey. And so I think before, design and experience and talking to your users had this bad rap of slowing things down and creating this bottleneck. And so I think we had a lot of really great conversations around the advisory side of it. So like, tell us what you've already heard from your users. And we're not saying that you always have to start at square one. You don't have to follow our process, always starting at the beginning. Like, we'll come and meet you where you are in your journey, and we'll extract that information in the best way we can, because some of these customers have 80,000 employees that they want to survey. Well, we've got a solution for that. We can do qualitative and quantitative data so that we can track some of those numbers, get a baseline figured out, and then keeping them on path with their target goal, not slowing them down, but listening to their users and talking about phased approaches. So we had a lot of great conversations around that as well.
I like that, where it's not just starting from scratch. It's like, and that's one of the things I've enjoyed about Thirdera is in a number of different fronts. Do we have assessments? Absolutely. Right. We've got assessments in a whole number of different places, because often we need to come in and help an organization figure out where they're at. And that could be with experience, could be in their CMDB, could be on CSDM, right? Let's add some more acronyms to it, all the ITX. There's lots of assessments, but many of our clients already have that. It's like they come and say, well, I've got this. And so it's cool to hear you talk about, being able to jump in with that data and jump with it further. Tell me a little bit more about the sessions that you guys both were involved in presenting.
So the session that we presented was called UX Matters. How experience can make or break your platform. Was that it, Martin? I feel like
that was the final one. I think we went through like 17 different names before we landed on that one.
All very similar, but we just talked about how like the ServiceNow platform is so strong and it's such a powerful platform, but it sometimes takes a little bit of extra time and talking to your users and really understanding again where the customer's at in their journey, what release are they on, what release are they going to. So we really just talked about how we can talk to your users, meet you where you're at on your journey, but just elevate the ServiceNow platform. And I love analogies. So one of the ones that we use was like, it's like if you're moving from one house to another. We talk to you about what furniture you're going to take with you, but what you plan on upgrading later. So we take all of that into account when we're talking to your users, but then when we're developing and designing as well. So this might be what you need right now in your journey, but we can look into the future and we can have those bigger plans. So I would say our presentation talked about some of the things that we think might break sometimes your platform. And we've got some best practices around that, but just also talking about what's the long-term goals, what are you going towards next, and how we can go along with you.
Yeah, and then the other thing,
tactical actions with a little bit of strategic view, right? Mixing both of those. Martin, Martin, what?
Yeah, I was going to add, and then we also layered in the architecture piece around the platform, and that's one of the unique things about Thirdera, that we can have the experience team, but also a very strong architecture team to make sure that anything that's being put forward to the customer is not going to introduce issues with their ServiceNow platform. So it's always all going to be aligned, and they can know that we're guiding them in the right direction. So we also cover that, and we talk about OCM as well, which is as important as experience. So
our advisory and OCM practice is sure taking off. Is in some respects, I think it's experience with a different moniker, right? It's almost setting the stage for the experience as you drive adoption and help people understand why are we changing the experience of ServiceNow, whether it's internally or otherwise. Very cool stuff around OCM.
I think another thing we talked about, Martin, you reminded me with your architecture piece there, is how we bring architecture throughout the journey as well. So we're not talking to your users in a silo and then designing in a silo and then saying, all right, Martin's team, catch, I hope this works out. Because we've really learned that designers and developers can work really well together and have really great suggestions along the way. And sometimes it's as simple as, where is this filter icon located? And that can really change what you're creating on the platform to be better and not break for future upgrades. So we bring along the Thirdera team of designers and developers along the way, but also internal teams too. We want to make sure that the knowledge transfer happens in the way that makes sense for our customers and where they're at. And if they have an internal UX team or corp comms or someone that we need to work with for brand alignment, we want to talk to them early and often, because we're all on the same team. We're all on the team of success and adoption at the end. So if we can bring everyone on to a degree, we never want too many cooks in the kitchen, but we've got tactics around that too. Just the value in doing that as well.
Cool. One of the other things that I think is always interesting, you talked about UI changing, and Martin, if you look at the history of all the different UI changes that ServiceNow has been through those years, and it used to be before joining Thirdera, I could say, yeah, I've been around since before the Aspen release. These are real gray hairs. There's so many of us around Thirdera that have been around that long, and we've seen those changes. With San Diego, there's so much new capability around experience that comes forward. What would you guys say for clients as they're kind of looking at the new UI, looking at service portal to EC, looking at some of those ways they might be kind of rethinking, all right, we got here, but we forgot about experience. What would you say customers should be thinking as they step back and either look at the new capabilities on the platform or kind of rethinking where experience should be on their roadmap?
I personally think it's, they need to define success. That's something we cover on the presentation as well. Because the, service portal, EC, that they're products, right? And they can help you achieve many things. But if you're not defining success, I've seen customers that they tell me that they implemented EC, and when I go to it, it's one link, right? So
it's on
implement EC, right? So are you trying to check a box that you did this, or are you trying to meet an objective? Is there success criteria? At that point, we'll determine is EC the right way to go? Do we want to do something in UI Builder? So there's multiple options, right? So I think that's the key thing. It's just turning it on. It's the same thing as virtual agent. You can turn it on, but if you don't have good conversations, it's not going to provide any value. So to me, that's the key thing, and that's why sometimes we say we'll meet you in your journey. We'll listen. We'll define success, so we understand where you are and what you're going to need to do, right, in order to get to that elevated experience.
Yeah, focusing on why, right, Bree?
Yeah, the why. Ask why 5 times and make sure they can answer it. All my fun techniques. I think when you're talking, Martin, about defining success, some great conversations that we had after our presentation was success sometimes means 2 things. It could be stakeholder success and it could be user success. So we like to kind of portion it out into different workshops and with different techniques to say, okay, stakeholders, voice of the users, what does success look like to you? And then, of course, we don't share that with the users and we hear directly from them what success looks like. And then we all come back to the table and we say, okay, from a business perspective, the stakeholders feel this is success. This is what we're hearing from your users. Let's align on a compromise success, or what do you feel success means right now? And let's not lose this second idea, maybe for another phase. But sometimes it's confusing because users might be shouting for something, but they might not be aware of what's going on for future upgrades in the platform. So that's a fun game of what's the best definition of success or what's the compromise.
Yeah,
you talk about I was just going to say, Martin, one of the things that I've seen in some of our client engagements is it really depends who comes into that room. That sometimes we come in and say, we really need to focus on what does our experience look like on our platform. And we have more employees than customers we can reach out to and pull in. And so you end up having these internal user conversations. And you get this great focus of here's what matters, here's why. And then you realize, well, we forgot, but let's pull in a louder voice from our customers. And what do they say? And that's where they can diverge a little bit. But it's important to have both of those audiences in there as well as the stakeholders, and trying to find that compromise of what success looks like is important.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is painting a picture for them as to what will this look like after the engagement, because they can implement knowledge, but if they don't have a team maintaining that content, it becomes out of date, right? And people will stop coming in. So something, it's a shift, right? That for them, success might be less calls, but that doesn't mean that those people are going to have less things on their plate, right? You're going to have a bit of a shift, because the moment you open things up, right, to self-service, people have a different expectation, right? If I go online shopping today, I expect to see a progress and a lot of things that then people are bringing back to work, right? And they're like, I expect the same level of transparency. So it's a bit of a shift on how people are working to make sure that everything's updated and relevant, right? So that's something that we put a lot of emphasis in when we're doing especially portal implementations, to make sure that anything we do, we're not introducing new skills to their technical team, so they can still maintain it with their current training, so they can make those quick fixes, right? Because I mean, sometimes you might expect even weekly content updates, and for people to come to that page and see what's new here, right? So I think that's as important.
It's content. And the other thing that I've heard your team say multiple times, and I've seen the capabilities on a platform to be able to do it, is we're also equipping our customer teams to be able to, I don't want to say reskin it because that's too heavy, but really change some of the visuals so that not only is the content up to date, like you were talking, Martin, because we see new things, we see our users are asking for what they're using more, we can craft and improve those. But I think there's some of just keeping the look and feel and changing some of the images. Perhaps there's a seasonal update, right? But I've seen your teams educate our clients on, here's some ways that you can keep these fresh, that it doesn't look like, oh, same image, it was here 9 months ago. It's much easier to change on the platform than I think some digital platforms in the past.
Yeah, and I think you can use that as an opportunity to show your users that you're listening too. So we talk about OCM, but another thing that we say is, like, when you launch a portal, be sure to listen right away, because people will speak up about what they like or don't like and what they're missing. And if you can update something and they say like, oh, I can't find whatever the button is, if you can update and maybe change the hierarchy of that on the page, right away a user will log back in and be like, oh man, I was just complaining about this, and they listened and they changed it. And from a technical perspective, that's a really easy change, but it goes a long way with creating trust with your users.
And don't just define that you do that once. It's like even that person, they're going to talk about how the feedback loop worked. And it's reinforcing, and you see much more of that. So that's a good call out to make.
Yeah. And I think you have to be careful that you're not over promising and under delivering. So when we're in the user interviews and stuff, a user might say, like Martin said, I want it to be like when I'm shopping on Amazon. Yeah, we agree. That would be awesome. But based off of what we can provide right now, this is what we're looking at. But just telling users too, like, the plan for the future, of course, is going to be getting that way. And thanks for that great idea. We're going to make a note and not lose that, because lots of times, like we said in our presentation, Martin, it's the WIFM, the what's in it for me. And everyone's just concerned, like, as a fulfiller, as a manager, as a user, as a requester, they just want their jobs to be easier, and they just want their work to be easier. So they want to understand that. So if you can listen and empathize with them and say, we hear that this is a frustration for you, in the future we're going to try to do it, but in the short term, this is our solution, what do you think? That goes a long way.
Absolutely. we're watching our time. One of the things that I'd like to get your thoughts on before we close up is kind of parting thoughts. We're in between, halfway through the knowledge events of this year. Thirdera was at both of them that we had already so far, and we've got 2 more coming up. So Las Vegas and Australia, we've got, Thirdera presence at both of those. But if someone's watching or someone's looking, for some help around experience, what are some ways that they can, engage with us at Thirdera?
Bree, this is all you.
Awesome. No, I didn't want to step on your toes. I think there's so many ways that we can engage. And I think the different leads that we got even from Den Haag were so interesting, because the engagement it needs to start again with where the customer's at in their journey. So what we're trying to do is just get a really good understanding. So one of our workshops that we have is called a discovery workshop. And so if we can just set that up with our customers and say, okay, tell us where you're at. Could you show us a bit of a reverse demo? We can talk to you a bit more about our process and see where you land on that. But we can also start asking the right technical questions, because we want to make sure that we're not promising something again on the design side that we can't deliver. So we would have someone from Martin's team, a developer, a solution architect, somebody like that to come in with us as designers to say, okay, let's just listen, and hear everything that you're doing. Show us a few things. We'll kind of check our best practices toolbox and see some suggestions right away, but just engaging with us so that we can understand. And we can also show you some use cases of, here's something that we've done really similarly that we think might work for you. Of course, we need to dive in a little bit deeper, but just having that kind of feedback back and forth. Martin, would you have anything to add to kind of that idea?
Yeah, what I say is, don't be afraid of change.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that needs to happen. People are expecting it, and we can help. We can take you through that journey. Once again, regardless if today you have a full self-service experience, let us look at it. Let us see what's working, what's not working. And we can paint a picture for you, and we can take you there.
One thing I'll add to that too is any baseline that you can give us is so helpful. So if you have, Martin, what's it called? The user experience analytics turned on for a portal, or if any Google Analytics or any kind of baseline that we can set right off the bat is super helpful as well.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I've seen has been helpful as we've gone into some of these engagements too is it's kind of like if you're going to an architect, you show up with the list of photos of all the homes you like. A lot of that is true from experience too, is if you can come in with, we've talked to a handful of our users, even just, individually, here are some things I like, here's some things that I don't. That helps so much as we sit down with customers, kind of learn where they're at, because everyone comes with a little different perspective, and industries are different too. So it's always good to say, here's some things that resonate and don't, is a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Any parting shots? Thank you both for coming on a Workflow Wednesday with me. I appreciate all that you guys do. But closing thoughts for people that are watching today.
I think my biggest closing thought is think about experience bigger than just maybe one piece of it. If it is platform or portal, that's definitely one component, but think about the whole experience and think about experience in your daily life. I know we've all walked up to a door and not been sure if it's a push or pull. Think about those experiences and how frustrating sometimes those things are, and see what you can translate it to when you're on the platform. But just all the different components of that. I tell my team all the time, the first email we send a customer is an experience, a PowerPoint or a presentation is an experience, a meeting like this is an experience, and we're always striving to make all of those things great.
Absolutely. Martin.
Yeah, I will say check out all the content that's being put out on the Thirdera Knowledge on Demand, including the Metaverse experience, which is our little virtual knowledge. So make sure to check all that out and reach out for any questions you might have.
Maybe I could add to that with a little teaser. We actually have an on-demand session coming out next week where we show how we interview users, and we talk a bit about empathy mapping and the importance of user interviews. So that will be on the Knowledge on-demand session. Might be great to check out.
Very good. Go to thirdera.com. There's tremendous information there. Our marketing team continues to blow our minds with the amount of information that's there. Our YouTube channel. And of course, you can reach out to me now with Troy. And you can find each of us on LinkedIn, easy to find, and do reach out. And if you've been watching this and you made it this far, do reach out. And let's find a time where we can sit down. Let's see where we can meet you at your journey, where you're at, and talk through how we could help you improve the experience in your organization. But with that, thanks so much for joining. Have a great rest of the week.